was about time I did this. So the last video in the series was me creating a reference sheet for Kea. Now I need to create a head turn around sheet as well as an expression sheet. And unfortunately for me, Kea's face is hard for me to keep consistent. Anyways, join me as I yap about the highs and lows of making these sheets. At first, I wanted to be lazy, so I already drew one of the side views as well as the front view. If I just copied and pasted those angles, I could do less work. Except I had to resize things, and also I looked at the side view more and was like, yeah no, I actually hate this. So similarly to how I redrew Sunwoo's side view for his sheet, we're giving Kea the same treatment here. When I tell you trying to draw Kea's side view was one of the worst side views I've ever had to attempt, I really mean it. You all might be asking how I put up with it in my last video where I drew his side view. So I don't know why I thought at the time that was decent. Or maybe I was tired because usually I record these videos in one sitting, but obviously that side view isn't good enough since I'm redrawing it. I don't know, I really did feel like I can do better. So I spent extra time trying to refine it. I kept looking back and forth at my references on how to draw a side view because yes guys, even I, as a totally seasoned artist, still struggle. I'm kidding about the seasoned artist part. I'm just a regular small artist trying to somehow make this work, but anyways, back to the main yapping points. After I finished the side view, it was on to the 3/4 views. Now, when it comes to me and 3/4 views, they're hit or miss. Either they really look like the character, or they low-key look like they should be on an episode of Botched. Because seriously, consistency where? My 3/4 views used to be pretty bad because my facial anatomy isn't as good as I think it is. Like, wow, why is that mouth so wide? Good lord! I think I've improved on my facial anatomy, so nowadays my drawings look decent. They're not perfect because there's no such thing as perfection in anything. Actually wait, I take that back. There is such thing as perfection, but it's very subjective because everyone has a different definition of that. Like hey, maybe I find my art mid, but someone else finds it the peak of perfection. I don't know if someone like that actually exists, but if they do, thanks for finding my art good. I still need to keep improving. But anyways, after staring at my other sheet for Kea and trying to figure out how in God's green earth I was going to make this 3/4 view look half decent, I created something. Well, it's passable, so I decided to just move on. Now you will see me working on the line art in the speed paint, and I gotta say the line art process wasn't too bad here. Mostly because I can just copy, paste, flip, and adjust for each of the sides, so that makes the process a lot better here. I mean, I always complain about the line art in my videos, but if you really think about it here with these sheets, it's not terrible. Is it fun? Heck no. But it was at least not my worst line art experience, so Kea at least owes that to me seeing as his side view made me want to crash out. When you have a vision for how you want things to look, sometimes you don't want to settle for less, even if your hands do not cooperate. Which sometimes mine don't. Draw decent hands? Nope. Luckily, there's no hand drawing for a head turnaround sheet, but at some point I should definitely do a hand study, because yikes, my hands are actually so off. Now, because these sheets are sort of simple in appearance, once I get through with the line art, the rest of it kind of just flies by. Unlike my usual reference sheets that I like making, these are unshaded. Maybe at most I just put in the blush and lips as well as eye shading, but these ones get to just be simple. It also kind of looks better aesthetically against a simple background like this. Nothing wrong with my sheets I've made that are fully shaded. I like those too, but I guess the flat colors with very minimal shading just hits differently. Now I'll probably just talk briefly about the colors even though there is not a lot to talk about here. I color picked from the other sheet just to make sure things stay consistent. And this is also another reason why I did flat colors for everything. It makes color picking so much easier. When you shade things, if you try to color pick it, you might not get your exact color depending on your shading style. I use a lot of softer shadows, so I guess you can say my shading style leans into soft shading. So yeah, I won't always get my exact swatch color. Now even with the light shading I did on the cheeks and lips, I can still mostly get the correct skin color, so I think that's fine. I don't really have any other comments about the shading process cause like I said earlier, there's not much shading being done here. So yeah, this sheet went smoothly overall despite the whole side view thing. Anyways, the speed paint is going to wrap up soon, so let me show you guys the final turnaround sheet. Alright, here is the final head turnaround sheet. This was still definitely a struggle. I think Kea still looks mostly like himself at all angles, so that's good. Now, obviously, this isn't the only reference sheet we're making in this video. Nope, we have one more. This section is about to be a lot longer because, wow, there's a good amount to unpack and yap here. So the next sheet I'm making for this video is an expression sheet. And for those that somehow don't know, it's exactly what it sounds like. A reference sheet for a character's facial expressions. I actually looked forward to doing Keia's expressions because it's interesting to imagine. Now, while you are watching me draw out Keia's expressions, you might be wondering what's so exciting about them. He just has like one look and it's some damn smile. Well, let me explain. If you watched my video on this for Sunwoo, you'll probably know that he has a resting bitch face. But despite the resting bitch face, he's actually decently expressive. I'll chuck in the reference sheet for those that don't feel like clicking onto that video later. I think with knowing how Sunwoo is, it just makes Keia a bit more interesting because I feel like he's the opposite of Sunwoo. He's always smiling, which is already different than Sunwoo's usual expression. But unlike Sunwoo, Keia actually isn't as expressive. He just smiles, and that's all you ever see from him. I wouldn't say he's stoic looking because I'm pretty sure always smiling and everything doesn't fit that definition. But you hardly see Keia express emotions like Sunwoo does, and that's because he doesn't understand them. He's very detached from his own emotions, and I'd probably say they're repressed. At least, that's what I've written him out to be anyways. So I would want that to reflect in his expressions I'm drawing. I always imagine Keia to be smiling, or at least smirking, because he's confident. He's confident in himself and his abilities. It's to the point where it actually feels weird for me to draw him not smiling. Like, he doesn't look like himself. So the first face I drew is going to be the neutral resting expression. So basically the face without any sort of emotions. And that just looks weird on Keia. For a second I kept adjusting his facial features because I kept thinking, this doesn't look like him. I'm sure there are genuine things I wasn't consistent with in that one, but I think a lot of it is definitely the expression. I used Sunwoo's expression sheet as a guide for what I should throw into Keia's, but that didn't help me make the time any faster in all honesty. I didn't completely follow Sunwoo's expressions for this sheet since Keia is his own character and probably doesn't look horrified at things like Sunwoo does. I actually low-key feel like there aren't many things Keia is afraid of. I knew for sure I wanted to draw his signature smirks in the reference, a closed and open-mouthed one. And since there's an open-mouthed one, I got to draw his sharp teeth. Remember guys, Keia is a siren in this, and so he gets to have sharp, scary teeth. After the smirks, you'll see me working on him not smirking, more of a genuine smile. I feel like it's kind of rare to see him smile like this. It would mean he's genuinely happy, and as I've established earlier, Keia is detached from his emotions. I bet he doesn't even know what happiness actually is or something. All he knows is boredom and just being better than others. Of course, I included two versions of the genuine smile too. I think Keia looks a lot nicer when he isn't smirking at everyone, but really the constant smirk does fit him as a character better. At least, what I intended for his character. Because people can interpret my characters in whatever way because we see things differently. I think I wrote something one way, then someone else sees it another way. It all depends. Now the second row of expressions is where we get more variety even though he's still smiling in all of them. So the one you're watching me work on right now is supposed to be his face when he's blushing. Except when I eventually got to the coloring stage, I forgot to put in the blush. But you know what? I kept it anyways because I'll just say you can't even tell when Keia is blushing or flustered at something. He's Keia, the king of keeping his cool and just not showing anything. The next few expressions are a bit scuffed because at that point, I was really struggling with consistency. Maybe I'm just harsh on myself, but it was definitely starting to look less like him. I know on the 7th expression on the sheet, I made a mistake and accidentally drew the mouth a bit too wide. I only noticed this after I finished recording. Yeah, so I don't feel like fixing it because by that point, I had been drawing for hours straight. The one after the 7th expression is a crying look because I felt like putting one in there. It says a lot about someone depending on how they cry. I don't think Keia ever cries though. Even as a baby, he probably didn't cry. He's built different, okay? Doctors probably thought there was something wrong with him when he first came out or something. Now, this is in context of just a normal realistic universe where Keia is a human. In this one where he's a siren, I mean, he's still built different, man. If Keia were to cry, I think he'd be confused as to why he's crying. He'd unironically be one of those pretty criers. Compare that with Sunwoo, who is a very ugly crier. I should have literally made it uglier in that sheet, but anyways, I should backtrack and actually talk about the 7th expression. We're probably confused as to what it is. It's Keia's sort of uncomfortable look. Well, I'm not sure if uncomfortable is the right word, but he's definitely not feeling well, and that's probably how he'd express it. Still a smile, but his eye is probably twitching just slightly or something. The last 2 expressions are of him looking pissed off. One of them is more normal. Of course he's still smiling, but you can definitely tell he's mad at you. I think it takes a lot to get Keiya genuinely angry. At most, he might just get annoyed. Of course, depending on the universe, the bar is either lower or higher, but here, it's a lot higher since I think he deals with a lot already. It would take so much effort to get him mad. Now the last expression is probably a bit interesting because we're all thinking, what the hell is that? It's meant to be that cursed on purpose. I actually took inspiration from Uma Musume here. I just thought the expression was amazing and was like, wait, can I do something with that? I'll throw the specific picture that inspired me right now. So like I said, Keiya isn't the most expressive and doesn't have a lot of variety, but at the same time, when he does have specific expressions, I think he's capable of having the most cursed looks known to mankind. I thought of a variation of the last one where he has a creepy smile. Now, if this was fully realistic, I have no idea how it'd work, but the beauty of art and stylization is that you can exaggerate and push things further. So that's exactly what I did. I pushed the cursed expressions pretty far. I feel like you only get that last look if you actually screwed up badly. Like you go beyond making Keiya angry somehow. It would take a lot to get to that point, but once you do, it's probably going to be really ugly. I find that the scariest people when angry are the ones that don't get angry often. So I guess I can class Keiya as one of those types. Maybe. The expression looks very scuffed and sketched, but I promise with color, it looks slightly better. The line art is being wrapped up in this, so I'll talk about the colors even though there's probably not a lot to talk about. I think for the most part, they were okay. Same process as always. For the shadows, it's where it's a bit different because of the last one. I was debating how I wanted to do it. I knew for sure I was going to do a black shadow. At that point, I was still debating if I just wanted to paint everything black and just say it's one big ominous shadow. I decided not to and at least added a tiny fade, but from afar, it definitely looks like it's just one huge ominous shadow. The point is that you only see those menacing eyes. I know we're still on the flat colors in the speed paint, but I'll talk about the shading a bit anyways. So I did slightly more shading in the expression sheet because I have one of the expressions with an upward head tilt. I'm trying to force myself to draw a bit more head angles in case nobody knew that. I always drew heads turning from the sides, but never looking up and down. So when I had tried to draw heads like that, they looked off. Well, we're going to fix that by forcing myself to draw that more. So when a head is tilted upward, I decided I'd break up the line art a bit and rely more on shading, so that specific expression has a bit more shading than the others. But I still tried to keep it light. It kind of looks like Keiya is looking down at you or something, and he probably is. I wouldn't be surprised. He'd probably be a bit condescending and patronizing or something. I never said he was that much of a likable person in the beginning. Whether people like him during character development is up to them. It'll all depend on how I write things. I can't say if I'm a good writer or not. That's up for the people to decide, I guess. Okay, and here's the final expression sheet. I mean, despite the last row being a bit scuffed, I think it'll provide me a good reference for some of the expressions he might have. I mean, that's the point of this sort of sheet. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video and want to see more from me, I'd appreciate it subscribe for this channel and a like on this video. I tried to do slightly more editing than usual and I don't know if you guys like that. We'll see if this does okay in the algorithm. Hopefully I'll see you guys in the next one, but until then, bye!